Well, we've all got those blind spots in our life, those places in our life where we don't recognize things, or maybe we don't see things, or we're not aware of things about ourselves, or maybe we've got an incomplete or inaccurate picture of ourselves. But there's also those areas where we actually know these things about us, and we just intentionally turn a blind eye to them. There are sometimes even things that we know are true about being a follower of Jesus. We accept those. Sometimes we even, maybe if we were honest, I feel like there's been a prompting from the Holy Spirit, I'm supposed to do this, or this is something I'm supposed to address, and yet we ignore them. We turn a blind eye. These are these things that we, I think, notice sometimes about ourselves, but if we were honest, we're unwilling to deal with those. But what if we actually said, no, I'm going to force myself to look at those. I'm going to examine those things in my life. And what if instead of ignoring those things, we actually started to trust God in those? And what if instead of just accepting the things that we can't deal with, we can't bear to deal with, what if we were equipped actually to see them and to actually have some tools so that we could actually be formed to the sake of Christ? So we've been talking about these blind eyes, these areas, and we got 4 that we're looking at, and the 2 we've already talked about were idols and tithing. Next week, we're going to talk about this idea of self-sacrifice. So, it's selflessness versus selfishness. But today, I want to talk about Sabbath, okay? Now, I don't know about you, but I love this time of year. This is my favorite time of the year. It's March Madness. I love every bit of it. And it is madness. If you've been watching, if you made a bracket, it's madness already, right? There has been some incredible upsets. There have just been some wrecking defeats, right? And it's this emotional roller coaster. And some of the excitement, or just even the thrill of watching it all, is the great highs and wins, like Princeton right now. Like they're the really the 15 seed darling kind of right now. But then there's just devastating losses. And you see the tears and you see the things happen. Now, this isn't basketball related, but I'm not sure if you saw this week. But there is a wrestler, I think he's from Iowa, and he is the greatest wrestler of all time, and he was amazingly upset by a Purdue wrestler. Anybody see this? His mom had an incredible reaction to his loss. All right, watch this. Watch this.
He's going to get the ball. He's looking for the ball. Survive that match.
Oh.
And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate to see, but this is what happens here, Jim.
Yeah,
There's so much at stake here.
The
parents are just
wow, right? I mean, that's an awesome mom right there. But like, you look at that and you go, man, she needs a Sabbath. Right? Like you feel like, man, she needs a break, right? Like have a Snickers. You're just not feeling yourself right now. You know what I mean? Like I just feel so bad for her. And we've all had those moments, right? When it's just, what am I going to do? How do I handle this? I need a break. And I think sometimes that's, if we understand Sabbath at all, that's how we can view it, right? I just need this moment to get rest back in my life, get myself back together. But I think if we were honest, maybe we don't fully understand Sabbath. We might say, well, I've heard of it. I think I've heard it talked about. But if I was not, I'm not really sure what it is. Isn't that just a Jewish thing, or that's just Sunday, correct? Because you and I, more than ever, what are our lives consumed by? It's consumed by doing. And I think technology has created this incredible world where there's ways for us to both think less, but at the same time think more. That's what it's created. And so sometimes, if we're honest, we're just too exhausted to even think about rest. But that's not the way life was meant to be. That's not the life that Jesus brought when he came to earth. And so what if our effort, what if our energy, what if our days actually came from a place of rest, restoration, and renewal? I think it would look like God's plan from the beginning. Because in the beginning, God created, and there's this term called ex nihilo. It means out of nothing, that God created out of nothing. Or in other words, he took from rubble and chaos, he created. okay? And it's interesting when you look at the creation account, each day it says there was an evening and a morning. Not a morning and an evening, there was an evening and a morning. So there was chaos to order, and there was this rhythm that was happening evening to morning. I don't know about any of you, but any of you have ever had you talk or walk in your sleep? Come on, it's a safe place. We can be honest here, right? Like, I do it all the time, and I'm known for it, and you probably remember some of my stories. The first night, Jody and I on our wedding night, Jody said, I literally sat up in bed and spelled out my name. I'm Barton W. Stone, Barton. And she was like, what did I marry, right? You know what I mean? There was another time in our first house, our master bedroom was set up was this. Like, so our bed set against the wall here. She had a closet here, and my closet was across the room, a little closet over there. And she woke up and could not find me in the bed. She noticed that her closet door was open. She was pretty sure she closed it. So she walked in. She found me, and I was holding on to the rod like this. And Bart, what are you doing? Woke me up. And I was like, man, why did you wake me up? I was hang gliding. And so I literally believed I was in there hang gliding. I have done many things, right? And I don't know when these will happen. I can't predict the nights, but here's what I can tell you. The odds are more in your favor that something's going to happen when I am just completely exhausted. Those seem to be the times when I will do something in my sleep. It's those moments, right, when your body is screaming rest, but we just keep working. I'm still doing something. Those nights when I just can't even keep my mind from spinning. I sometimes even have to get up and write things down because it is spinning. That can be a pretty good picture of my life. I know I need Sabbath rest, but I just can't seem to shut it down. You know those moments when you're physically present, but you're in no way mentally present? Ever been there? So as we talk about Sabbath, it's easy for me to say that the problem and the reason why I don't take Sabbath is because I don't know how to stop. But Sabbath reminds me that I do need to stop. And not stopping is really, I would say, it's just a symptom of the greater illness. Now, Sabbath plays throughout God's entire story, right? In creation, we see that God works 6 days and he rests, and he says, I'm going to create something called Sabbath, and he makes it holy. So he creates this day of rest, he names it, and he makes it holy. When you get to Exodus chapter 20, we first see the 10 commandments, right? The first 3 commandments are very God to man based. They're really about our relationship with God. The last 6 commandments are very much man to man. It's how we relate to each other. So the 4th command, like this bridge between the two, is this: keep the Sabbath. Then Jesus comes along in the New Testament and he says, hey, I'm the Lord of the Sabbath. I'm the Lord of rest. I'm going to model this. I'm going to teach it. And then you get to Hebrews 4 and it talks about an eternal rest, and it's giving us a picture of what heaven's going to be. But in creation, God creates for 6 days. He decides to make the world, right? And many of you, you're that personality that you're like, I really wish God would have consulted me on this, right? But he didn't. He made the world by himself. He didn't need anybody else. Genesis 2. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the 7th day, God finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the 7th day from all his work that he had done. So God blessed the 7th day, and he made it holy, because on it God rested from all his work that he had done in creation. So what we see, Sabbath is created, built, it is made, okay? It did not simply exist. God creates it, and then he makes it holy. And if I could just make Sabbath a simple definition for us, it's creating time, right? It's creating margin in our life. And the reason we create this margin is for relationship. So how could we better understand and experience the rhythm of Sabbath? God rested, and he created a rhythm of rest. On the 6th day, he made man, right? He made Adam. It's the only thing that he said was not good was that Adam was alone. And so in Adam's rest, here's what God does. He gives him rest. He puts him in a deep sleep, and he creates Eve. In other words, what God's saying, I'm God, you're not. So you need rest, and guess what? I can still keep working while you sleep and rest. And then God gives them this incredible responsibility, right? You're supposed to manage creation. You've got to name all the animals. But tomorrow we're going to rest. That's what God says. And I can imagine Adam, like many of us, would have said, rest? What do you mean rest? I've been resting. You just put me into a deep sleep. And then Eve, we can understand what she would be like. Rest? I just got here, right? I'm full of all kinds of energy. And many of you, you're that mindset. You would have gone crazy. Here's this to-do list. You've got man's creation, name the animals, but tomorrow we do nothing. Because they found joy in being with God. Now, Genesis 3 is where we start to see the problem creep in, okay? Now, the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, well, we may eat from the fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say, you must not eat the fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die. You will not certainly die, the serpent said to the woman, for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and she ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. Here's what happened to Adam and Eve here. They delighted in what they saw. In that moment, they went content from being with God to wanting to be like God. The symptom is that I cannot stop, but the illness is I want to be like God. Get that? The symptom is that I cannot stop, but the true illness, the true problem is that I want to be like God, right? I think I can handle it. I can manage everything. So I've got the block of school. Yep, I can handle it. I got it. I got the block of work. Yeah, I can do that. And some of us are managing both of those, right? And then I've got the block of hobbies, or I've got expectations that everybody wants me to live up to, but I've got it. And then I'm trying to manage my social media and what everybody thinks of me and how I look to the outside world. And then I'm trying to be successful so then that I can make some money. And so I've got those, and I'm managing those. And then I've got some sports in my life, and I love sports, and we got to get kids to sports, and then, oh yeah, we got relationships we got to manage. Oh, and then, I've got, can I even get this? Oh yeah, I've got my past and my hurts and my emotions, and I can do all this. I'm trying to carry all this, and we just think we can do it all ourselves. But what if we would just release? What if we would just release? Because then there would be nothing to affirm. There would be nothing to hide. Everything would be exposed. No fig leaves. We're just running naked through the garden. But for some of us, that's what exactly is so terrifying, that I would be fully exposed before God in all my inadequacy. Many years ago, I got to go to Israel, and so we were in Jerusalem. We were in the old city when Shabbat began. Shabbat is the Jewish term for Sabbath. And in Jewish culture, that begins on Friday night at 6, goes from Friday night at 6 to Saturday at 6. So we were in the old city, and we're watching as the families and people start to come in to celebrate Shabbat at the Wailing Wall. So, man, these Orthodox families are coming in with their kids, and people are walking in, they're excited. And then, about right at 6, just waves of young people and college-age students start coming in, and they are celebrating. In fact, I took this picture right here. I love this picture, because I love the guy with just his hands up. And then if you could see the whole group in the back, they're in a circle, and they were dancing and singing. The one girl's up on the guy's shoulders, and this was just the first wave. They just kept coming, and it was like a pep rally. They were so excited to get there and to celebrate Shabbat. Now, I know there's a lot of legalism in Jewish culture, Orthodox Judaism. I know that really many of these Jews have missed Jesus as the Messiah. But the one thing I saw in them was this excitement, and they were filled with joy because Shabbat was beginning and they were releasing everything else. Sabbath releases us from the tyranny of doing so that we can just be. When we release the things that we feel are most important to us, it creates space where we can actually hold on to the gospel. Psalm 37 says this, "Fret not yourself because of evildoers. Be not envious because of wrongdoers, for they'll soon fade like grass and wither like the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and befriend faithfulness. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he'll give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him, and he will act. He will bring forth your righteousness as the light and your justice as the noonday." Then I love this part. "Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers in his way, over the man who carries out evil devices." So basically what the psalmist is saying here is we are chasing those who we think are prospering, who think they've got it together. You got to keep going. You got to keep fighting. You got to keep pressing on. And he says, no. Those things they're going to fade like the grass. They're going to wither away. What if you were to open yourself up? What if you were to hold nothing back? What if you were to be still before the Lord? I love the three words that he says. What? Trust, dwell, delight. Adam and Eve delighted in being like God. So the question for us is, will we delight in being like God, or will we delight in God? Because Sabbath releases you from trying to be like God so that you can actually be with God. Now, we were created to work, all right? We are designed to work. I'd love to do a whole series on how God has designed us to work. What does it look like for us to flourish in our work? We're designed for that. But God works 6 days, and then he rests on the seventh. So Sabbath allows us this release from the toil of work so that we can simply be with God. It's the rhythm of the design. I love this statement. A person who works with their hands will Sabbath with their mind, but a person who works with their mind will Sabbath with their hands. I am somebody, a lot of my job is with my mind. So when I do Sabbath, I love to be outside. I love to do yard stuff. I love to work on something with my hands. And it actually helps me connect with God because most of my work is done with my mind, so I can Sabbath with my hands. So what would make this space of Sabbath different for you? How could you create margin for relationship? The rhythm is simply this. It is rest and renewal. There are simply two parts to Sabbath. There is rest and there is renewal. Wayne Mueller, in his book Sabbath, I would recommend it, great book, Finding Rest, Renewal, and Delight in Our Busy Lives, he said this: if we do not allow for rhythm rest in our overly busy lives, illness becomes our Sabbath. What he was kind of saying is that a rhythm of Sabbath actually plays into the overall health of our lives. And if we only see Sabbath as just rest, we're only telling half the story. The other half is this renewal, right? God is making us holy. God created Sabbath. He made it holy. In Sabbath, God is renewing us. He's making us holy. Here's what I think you need to see. You need to be desiring Sabbath, not needing it. So what we do is we get such to a point where we're just desperate for it. We actually have to live in a rhythm where we're desiring it. Now, I understand there's some misconceptions about Sabbath. Many of you think, oh, that's Old Testament stuff, right? That's old-fashioned. That's only for the Jews. Well, Jeremiah, the prophet, in chapter 6 says this. He says, stand by the roads and look and ask for the ancient paths where the good way is and walk in it and find rest for your souls. Actually, what he was saying was, hey, there's actually some good sometimes in the old things. And then we actually need to step back in those and walk in those. And if we do that, we'll find rest for our souls, right? Another misconception is that rest and renewal is physical. So Sabbath means no laundry, right? No working. I can't pick anything up. It's lots of sleep. Yeah, that's what I'm supposed to do. Here's what you need to know. Sabbath is not an espresso. Sabbath is not a Red Bull. Sabbath is not a 5-hour energy drink, right? Many of us think it's just this day in the week, and we've never really understood how it is a practice. It's a rest that is renewing, that is making us holy. So God is holy. The Sabbath is made holy. God is making us holy. We are to be holy as he is holy. So I think we need Sabbath. And here's another misconception. God does not rest because he's tired. God rests because he's holy, and everything he does is holy. So God rests. God is holy. Therefore, rest is holy. It's simple math. So we are to be holy. So I think we could say that our holiness has a lot to do with the rhythm and practice of Sabbath, of rest and renewal. And to be holy, what happens is we are being set apart so that we can be renewed. So being made holy as Sabbath through Sabbath. It's God who makes us holy. It's God who gives us rest. It's God who renews us. Isaiah talked about this. Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, he increases strength. Even youths, even young people are going to get tired, shall faint and be weary, and young men and young women shall fall exhausted. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not be faint. And if you thought this is just Old Testament stuff, listen to Romans 12. Do not be conformed to this world, the chasing, the pursuing, the constantly going and working, but be transformed by what? The renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. The Greek word for renewing here means renovation, right? A complete change for the better. I mean, right, all of us have got that one HGTV show or something like that we love where, man, they do a full renovation, right? It never looks like what it looked like before. You're no longer conforming to what you've known or what you've done. You're being renovated. There's a renewal. There's a complete change in your life. So what happens, there's this realm in time, the Sabbath, where our goal is not to have, but to be, not to own, but to give, and not to control, but to share. So Sabbath is really this transition from human doings to human beings. It's a renewing of the mind. And then Revelation tells us again, it's the whole picture of God. And he who was seated on the throne said, behold, I am making all things new. That's the business that God is in. I'm making all things new. And then he says, write these down, for these are trustworthy and true. The Greek word new here is kainos. It means it's a new kind. It's unprecedented. We've never seen this before. So our part is to rest, and God's part is to renew, to create in something new that you've never seen before. So there's a purpose for our resting. Sabbath is the beginning of something new. Every evening to morning is creating space for renewal. Sabbath gives us hope that the world does not depend on us. I'm dying to myself. I'm putting things back in the right place. I'm creating margin. I'm getting in the Word. I'm praying because I'm creating space for relationship. It's about your mind and your soul and your heart and your spirit. Pastor Tom Salmon, he says this, as Calvin suggests, we rest from our work so God can do God's work in us. The Sabbath is about letting go of control and allowing God to get a word in edgewise, being fully at rest so one can be fully present to God. And here's the great news that some of you need to know is that God has solved the sin problem. You need to stop trying and rest, because many of us, what we're trying to do is we're trying to earn God's favor. We're trying to do good things to replace the bad things that we've done. We're trying to do our best to work for this. And too often, then here's what we say is, I will do better. I can do better. And so what usually follows that is this frenzied pace where I'm trying to find a new routine to make me better. But what that results in is more failure, and then I just spend more time hiding. And it's more about my glory and my attempt to become a good Christian for God, without Sabbath, without rest, without stopping. And we say that, and I know that, I get that, it's crazy. But here's what happens in the heart of many of us. I don't know about you, but this happens to me. There's this longing that I want to be the spiritual hero, right? It's like I want to be like Neo in the Matrix. I want to be the one. I want to be the one that people count on. I want to be the one that's indispensable. The problem is, do you know how much energy it takes to be a hero? Enormous amounts, right? And the fact it's downright exhausting, and human beings, we were never created, we were never well suited to play the hero or to play Messiah. But even, think about it, even the Messiah didn't have a Messiah complex. Throughout his life and ministry, Jesus demonstrated this holy disregard for crowd pleasing by practicing this holy rhythm of engagement and then withdrawal. During his 3 short years of ministry, the gospel writers tell us time and time again that he had this regular habit of withdrawing to lonely places. And often these were at some of the most unexpected and seemingly inopportune moments. Jesus would have 5,000 people sitting there wanting to hear him teach, wanting him to heal, wanting him to do great things. And the disciples would be like, where's Jesus? Oh, he's up on the hillside by himself, alone with his Father. Because at the hub of his holy rhythm was this ancient, life-giving practice of Sabbath, rest, and renewal. I mean, Scripture tells us what Jesus did. On the Sabbath day, he went into the synagogue as was his custom. See, unlike the crowds that he sought to serve, unlike the disciples that he was trying to lead, Jesus was called, not driven. You see the difference there? It's called, not driven. They wanted him to wear a cape, and he said, nope, I'm going to wear a towel. And I think like Jesus, some of us as Christ followers, what we need to learn today is to just breathe. Breathe. Think about it. The human respiratory system requires a balance of both inhalation and exhalation. So I think we've got to learn the practice of spiritual respiration. And we've got to stop turning a blind eye to silence and solitude and Sabbath rest and Sabbath renewal. That we've got to renew our commitment to work with God, not just for him. We've got to work with him. And as we renew this commitment, here's what happens. He promises to renew us. And he is the only viable, reliable remedy for our spiritual heroism. So I think we've got to learn the unforced rhythms of rest and renewal. So the first one you've got to get is rest, right? So what would it look like for you to prepare for Sabbath, right? What if you on Saturday evenings you said, I'm going to get a good night's rest? Maybe you need to take a nap. I love the story of Elijah because Elijah was like us. He had been pushing and pushing and going, part of these incredible things for God, and then he was just done. He was toast. He was like, God, just kill me now. And God did just a couple things. God fed him, and then he made him sleep. And then guess what God did again? He fed him and made him sleep, and then they had some time for relationship. And God started to renew him. I tell a lot of our young staff that sleep can be your greatest leadership tool. Second thing is renewal, right? We have to allow God to do the renewing, that there's something new in us that was unprecedented, wasn't there before. So we rest and renew. Now, I wouldn't be a good teacher, a pastor, if I didn't give you some more R words, right? Because that's what we do as pastors, right? So you got rest and renewal. I want to give you 2 more R's. Reflection. Reflection. What if you actually look back and assessed your life? How has God shown up before? What does rest look like? What has healthy rhythms been? What does it look like when I've been out of rhythm? I've got to assess that. I've got to remember. I don't know, maybe you're like me. I am one who is always pushing forward. And so sometimes I don't look back and reflect very often. That has been something I've really been working on to try to add that to my rhythm of rest and renewal. And then the other thing is once you have rest and renewal and you start to use the reflection practice is that you release, right? You release. It's so freeing when we finally just trust God and we release. So what would a Sabbath day look like today in my life? How do I build Sabbath into my life? What does Sabbath look like for my family? What would Sabbath look like for my spouse that I could help him or her in that? If you've been practicing Sabbath, here's what I would ask you. What's been the most freeing part of Sabbath for you personally? See, Momentum, I think we've got to get some handles on this. We've got to put some application to this. We've got to be trying to work on this and do this together. And so one thing that we've done in this series is we've got devotions for each of the weeks. And so this week, maybe if you haven't yet, you need to go into our app and you need to download the Sabbath daily devotions for this week. You can click on that right there. That's called something that I can't remember at the moment, right? QR code. Yes, that is it, right? QR code. Download that. And maybe a start for you this week is just a daily devotion where you have a little bit of space and time for relationship. We would love to see some shared learning because some of you are doing some things that we could learn from and we can be encouraged by. Some of you have got some ideas of things you've stepped into, or you did this and it was such a great Sabbath for you. Would you share those? Put those out on social media. We've got a hashtag, Try the Sabbath. And actually, if you look that up on Instagram, it is fully momentum. And years ago, we did this, and there's some old ones in there. But what if we started sharing those with each other and just looked at those? We're going to do something really simple this week. We haven't been pushing it till this moment right now. But sometimes for Sabbath, it is just simply a space to worship and recognize that God is God and we are not. And so this Saturday night, Noah, Keaton, and some of our worship team, they're going to do a very simple just worship time this Saturday night, 7 p.m. right here in this room. And if you want to come, it's just going to all be about Sabbath, rest and renewal. Maybe that's a place for you to start. Here's what I want you to know. You have to build in Sabbath somewhere. You have to. And it's more about the practice and the discipline. So for some of you here, this is it. Over the next 7 days, you just need a little bit of space and time each day. For some of you, you're at the point where you need to intentionally plan a 12 to 24-hour period where you will experiment with Sabbathing. Phone off, no work, no errands, just enjoying that time with God and even maybe with your family. I love it for our staff. We've got Bamboo is our HR app. And in there, you go in there, you schedule your vacation, your sick days, but we also give our staff 5 to 6 Sabbath days. And we encourage you throughout the year to plan those. No phone, no coming to the office, no planning ahead. It is just simply to be with God. And think about that phrase I said earlier. I love it. If you work with your hands, Sabbath with your mind. If you work with your mind, Sabbath with your hands. And here's what I want you to know. I'm really good at vegging out. I have got a recliner. It's great. I know the perfect pillow that sits right there between my back. I love to get, a drink and maybe some peanuts or something like that and just get a Netflix show or sports and just veg out, okay? Vegging out is not bad. Vegging out is not Sabbath, okay? It's not. And some of you, this is the one thing you need to hear. You have to be comfortable with stopping even when everything isn't done. Hear me? It's not finishing all the work, it's stopping all the work. So 6 days a week, we wrestle with the world and we're trying to make a profit from the earth. But in Sabbath, we care for the seed of eternity that is planted in us. The world has our hands, but our heart, our soul, our mind belongs to someone else, the Creator. And so we rest to be renewed. And when we live in a rhythm of Sabbath, we put God back in the equation and we leave some of the figuring out to Him. And so we recharge our batteries with only an energy that comes through stopping. And we become more generous with the gifts that God has given us. Because life is serious business. It's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when hard times are going to happen. And when I do, and when they do, what I wish for you is the strength that only comes from Sabbath rest and renewal. That you've been renewed with faith and hope and love and the promises that come from God. Our prayer, as we've been thinking about this series, and especially this week, was to create a powerful, compelling vision of Sabbath, of Shabbat Shalom. In Jewish, that means the peace of Sabbath. That you would desire it, that you would no longer turn a blind eye to the practice of it, that we would all see the rest and renewal that comes from a healthy rhythm of Sabbath. Because if we renew Sabbath, it will renew us. Our part is to rest. God's part is to renew. The question is, will we let Him? Now, Jews had an advantage that we don't have. They would rest all day and then worship at night. They would go to the temple and the synagogue. We worship in the morning. So here's what I want to challenge you, Momentum. What if we started thinking ahead on Saturday? What if we enjoyed Saturday evenings and afternoons with our families and we ate well and we rested and we got to bed and we came to this thing we call church and we were prepared and we were rested? Imagine the relief you would experience if you took some moment each day or each week to recenter your life on God that you had a full day every week to rest. Imagine how powerful these gatherings would be if we all came in rested and prepared for worship. Because Sabbath releases you from trying to be like God so that you can be with God. Would you pray with me? Father, thank you so much for this reminder. This is not something new. This is something you set in motion from the beginning, this idea. You created and made this thing called Sabbath and made it holy. And you set it as a rhythm that we were to follow and to put into practice and to desire. But God, honestly, too often I have turned the blind eye to this. We have. And so God, may we be renewed today in our understanding. May we be renewed in our commitment to step into this. Because if we commit to this, we know that you will step in and renew us. That if we rest, you are looking to make all things new. So God, may we see that, may we experience that, may we live that out. Not in desperation, but as a regular rhythm of our lives. God, I pray that this would be one thing that we would not turn a blind eye to anymore. We would see the value that it has on our lives, the value that it could have on our families, the value it could have on our communities and our church. It's actually a very simple rhythm that could change our world. God, may we step into this. Thank you for sending Jesus, who brought life to us, who modeled this, who lived this out. And when he says, do as I do, be like me, this is one of the things he was saying. Do this. Be like me in this. Connect with your Father.